Okay, well, welcome everybody. Let's get into a midweek update. It's the 6th of August. Actually, kind of a interesting, kind of a boring week as we get to the end of the summer here. But let's see what we can find. You know how this works. Take responsibility for whatever we share, and we can continue to do these classes.
All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. This video has been released to the public after a delay required by our compliance department. Maverick Traders received this market recap immediately, along with real-time trading support and resources. Maverick Trading is a proprietary trading firm that backs professional stock and options traders with firm capital. Our traders keep 70 to 80% of the profits they generate. If you're ready to become a professional trader, click the apply link in the video description below. Let's break down what happened in the markets today.
All right, so let's get into our current outlook, and I'm just going to kind of stay at this cautionary. Let's pump the brakes. Let's see what happens when over the next little bit here as the markets try to climb back. So I'm going to stay at that +1 for the weekly outlook. The monthly outlook is a +1. It appears it was just a pretty aggressive round of selling, maybe an excuse to take some profits, but we'll pull up the chart here in a second to analyze, because the markets do appear to be, they've actually closed that gap that they set last week, but we'll see if we roll over from here, consolidate, or move higher. So it's kind of in a tricky situation. Now there are trades that are to be had out there. There's things that are moving. We have earnings out, continue to go out. I just threw out some out here. McDonald's and Disney, Shopify were out already. We got DoorDash, Airbnb, DraftKings coming out tonight. So there is stuff moving all over the place. So let's just go straight out and start taking a look at them. So as you can see, just another move to the upside so far. We'll see where we close, right? I mean, this could easily roll right back down, but I mean, the NASDAQ put in another 1%. So you guys can see here, the consumer side of things, Walmart has a pretty good push to the upside going on now. Tesla's balancing Amazon. Here's PLTR, had earnings. So doing okay in Apple. So a lot of this has to do with some of these larger carriers. Everything else is just kind of bouncing around. A little bit of weakness in healthcare. But as you can see, the overall markets, they're just kind of moving a little bit higher for now. So where's it going to put us? Well, let's take a look at the SPY chart and let's look at it a little deeper. This is kind of what I wanted to analyze. So we had this really good bullish move, and it's moved up, and then, okay, wow, here's that dark cloud cover. I think I made mention of this on an end-of-day post, I think, for the currency side of things, saying, look, this is pretty ominous. It's associated with some decent volume. You know, we've seen these before, but this one's a little bit, could have some fall through, and it did. It did. It came off of good news, talking about, there are some tariff things coming with Europe and the U.S., stuff like that. Japan was in negotiation, things of that nature. And then two good rounds of earnings when it came to Microsoft and Meta, but it just gapped down. And I just think it's a round of, or I should say, just kind of an excuse to actually just take profit off the table. It's super common. So we have a interesting pattern, and this is a tradable pattern if you want to continue to follow with it. Now this was the gap. So we had this gap down, a gap up that traded down. So that's that big dark cloud cover. But the next day we had the follow through, bigger volume associated with this as we gap lower. Now this would be the closing point of the gap, or I should say the opening point, because it's a red candle. So it's between these two areas that we would need to close. And you could see it actually did that pretty much Monday. A little bit of a hiccup Tuesday, and here we are Wednesday kind of testing it. So this whole move from the top to the bottom here is half. Boy, let me just draw that again and make it look a little prettier. If this is the top and this was the bottom, and I'm just going to kind of go off of the candle, the candles themselves, no wicks. Look at this. That's exactly a retracement back to the middle. Now, this poses some pretty interesting questions. Well, are we going to roll over? Are we going to move higher? Well, I'll tell you when it happens. How's that for an answer? Okay, but that question's still pretty valid. So this is kind of a range that we saw it break out, and it kind of gapped itself back into this range. Now, it's actually starting to slip above it again. You take a look at the box. However, it could roll over. Now, if it rolls back into the box, it doesn't mean it's falling apart or it's bearish, but it is absolutely established a lower high. And what I mean by that is you will have this. If it rolls over today, here to tomorrow, the next day, right, and kind of starts its way back into that box I drew, we have a lower high. And it's the first one we've seen in a little bit. So I could say that this bull move is definitely over when we get this rollover. Now, the overall bull trend is not until we break support levels. And I'm going to have to just kind of echo where we've been looking from some of the guys around here, that 62 level, or 6,200, or 620, at least on the SPY. But if we break this area, now we can say that we might have established the first lower low of a bearish move or a trend. Okay, so what this does is it puts us in this place where we're really sitting on our hands. I mean, we've got these candlesticks, green, red, green. They've closed the gap. I drew those first lines showing that, hey, this is kind of it's retraced half of the move from its top to a bottom when it comes to the gap in that range. So that's kind of a sit and hold. Now, there are stocks that are doing good and there are stocks that are doing bad. And I imagine if we can continue trading within this box, and I'll go back to it here, then I think we could get a fair amount of both. If we start to climb up out of here, then we'll probably want to lean a little bit more to the bull side. Now, I'm not going to go bullish on everything, but I'm going to try to stay there. So if we go back down to this box, it's going to be very easy for us to feel, okay, maybe I got to go straight bearish. We don't want to do that. We don't want to abandon bull trades, and we don't want to just jump on bear things. What also could happen is if we get to this area, and I wouldn't be surprised if we wanted to get another round of selling to where we get some sort of a news or catalyst where we get one candle like this, and then let's just see if I can do the best to do a hammer, something like that. More volume here on the bottom that associates with it. Maybe instead of getting this first candle I drew, it gaps down. So a lot of emphasis has to be put on that lower support here at 620. Now, I just talked through a whole bunch of what-if scenarios. That's what I'm looking for. Those are the keys that are going to make me pull triggers. Outside of that, there's real no advantage to do anything after a pretty aggressive correction in an overall bullish move. So we're kind of stuck in this rock and hard place. Now, let's go out and take a look at some trades anyways. If you guys want to start typing those down to see kind of what's out there. And there are some opportunities, but you're going to have to sit through something like that. The scenario where we just kind of bounce around, or maybe another push to the downside, which might kind of scare you out of some trades that you already have. So if you're comfortable kind of sitting on your hands, this might be the week to do so. If there's some darts you want to go throw, just go for it, but understand you're going to have to sit through a little bit of volatility. All right, anybody got any trades you want to look at? If not, we can go through a couple that I might have. Now, so speaking of earnings, let's start with that. I liked DraftKings. We are seeing movement in the consumer cyclical and consumer defensive. Let's go to the groups real quick, and you'll see that, I've seen that. Communication services, obviously, because of some of the bigger numbers and earnings that have been out, but look at the defensive here over the last week. And then the last couple of days, consumer cyclical, consumer defensive, they're both, or I should say today, they're both kind of moving higher. Tech, communication services, this is kind of what I would expect when we're seeing a bounce after a sell-off like that, or a market that's finding a little bit more complacency, at least over the last little couple of days. So I just went ahead and I was looking a couple in there, and I took a look at DraftKings. I'll go back to it now. And I liked the pattern. Unfortunately, it does have its earnings tonight after the bell. So this would be kind of a coin flip play, but I just like the high basing pattern. It did gap down, but notice how it gapped back to a support level, and it's climbing higher. So it's got its earnings, but it could be a possible trade when it comes to the bulls. I do like it. I am definitely going to watch it after its earnings to see if I can't trade it after it announces, right? Let's take a look at Tesla. This was an interesting one. I was looking for something kind of sideways that's past its earnings, and so Tesla kind of jumped out, right? But it's actually doing this really interesting consolidation move. It's a symmetrical triangle pattern that it's forming. So I was thinking, okay, yeah, Tesla might just kind of bounce around. Let me see if I can establish a range to where I could trade it. You know, is this resistance and support, and maybe I'll throw like a butterfly on this or condor or whatnot. But I noticed this symmetrical triangle is tightening. So I'm probably going to lean towards a breakout above above that slope that I drew there. So this is kind of a half art, half technical setup here. It's kind of where you draw your lines and just giving an idea of, okay, if I see it do something strong to the upside, I might want to get into it. And it will be. It might be a gap up through this or a big candle that breaks through it. And I want to see a little bit of volume associated with it. But if it could break above that slope there, that might be something I might throw a couple of bucks at. Now, I don't expect it to continue a huge move. This would probably be like a +1 trade, maybe for about a week. All right, Todd's got a trade for us. This is FRPT. This is fresh pet to the short side, right? Just had its earnings. Doesn't look like, well, I don't know, whatever they did. It looks like they had kind of a hiccup, and now they're trying to figure out what to do with it. But this is great. It still looks like it's got a little bit of volatility, but that initial gap up is neat, and then it comes and trades all the way down. That's pretty cool. And then it just seems to be bleeding off. Very good opportunity for a bear here, especially as you continue forward. So yeah, it's just going to be more of a continuation from this break. This was the lowest it actually got before it gapped up, and so it looks like it's going to bleed lower. So targeting might be a little bit difficult on this. You could probably snap Fibonacci's on that. Do some sort of retracement move from here to here and see what the extension is. If you want to take a trend line, geez, that's a little steep. Somewhere like this, maybe shoot for that 60, things of that nature. Just get creative with the targeting. Or if you want to do the -1 trade, which I would suggest, I think everything should be maybe +1, -1, for at least for this little bit in the markets till they correct or kind of figure out where they want to go. Where was I going with that? Jeez, yeah, negative. Oh, credit side. Yeah, so if you wanted to take that -1 trade, look towards a credit. It doesn't need to target all the way down to 60. You could play something between the two here. Like a, well, 65 is pretty aggressive, but maybe a 65, 62.50, something a little deeper in the money. If there's a 67.5, 62.5, play it sideways to down there with a credit. That might be kind of a cool trade on that. But I've added it to our bear side of things. Let's see if there's another bear that I had. Dutch Brothers. This is one from last week, and I still like it. It is going into its earnings, though. Oh, gosh. Was this today? After market close. Okay. So Dutch Brothers actually has its earnings. It's one that I liked last week. Slow bleed lower. We're talking about a -1, and guess what, folks? It's still a -1. So it worked out. It slid a little bit, but if you don't want to play it before its earnings, just take a step out of it. I'll put it down because it's something that I might want to get into after it announces, depending on where it goes, if it gaps up or down. So earnings kind of throws things off as well. This week, and it was in particular because when I was building this class, it was funny because there's really nothing going on. We had our first round of profit taking from the top, but it didn't really crash anything. I'm looking to the news. This is a very light week of economic news, and that this last 1 or 2 weeks into the summer is ending and getting into some earnings, and it's a real tough area to make trades. So if you're finding that, that's okay. XHB, a little bit of hesitant resistance, giving it a little bit more of a kind of just almost like it wants to go back into a range. It's interesting because you got this 200-day slope, but a really good push off the bottom here since June. Kind of consolidated. It's actually created a range before that, didn't it? Let's see. But it looks like it's trying to build that same idea. I do like it. And Josh is saying, hey, 108 and 100 put spread is great. I like the strike prices. 108, 100, giving it a larger range. It's a little bit lower here and just a little bit higher there. So, and it's great. And then thinking that it would be a credit. And that's a great idea because then you could allow this thing to play the game of back and forth, right? So that's a good one. I almost would put that kind of on the sideways trade. And what I like about ETFs is they don't have earnings, do they? So you can keep going for those, right? Okay, moving on. Let's get to, it was Dollar General. I believe this was one that we had a couple of days ago, or excuse me, was it a couple classes ago? It was I think it was Dollar General. Anyways, if it's not, I apologize. But we were talking about maybe a consolidation, and it was kind of stair-stepping down. But then we identified, well, it could break lower, but if it doesn't break below the channel, which it might have, because I'm drawing this a little later. No, actually, it didn't. Then it could be a bullish flag pattern. And it turns out that's exactly what it was. So it was kind of interesting. And folks, I apologize if it's not DG. It was a stock that was very similar to this. Yeah. All right. Well, if you guys remember what it is, type it in for me. If not, it's kind of be mindful of things like that. So I've seen a lot of things come off the bottom. There's still stuff surging. For instance, let's take a look at Walmart. Some sort of news today on it. A big push to the upside, breaking out through resistance areas. And I think it's just some sort of news on it. But we are seeing activity. Let's take a look at Apple. Apple had something in the news as well. So I'm seeing the same sort of fishing going on that we saw as these markets were climbing, especially after corrections. So the markets start to slip a little bit, and then boom, these things start to pop up. Earnings is still kicking. We've got Shopify. Everybody and their dog went out to go ahead and buy this. So stuff like that is all over. So just be mindful of it. Let's get into another bull that I liked. If you guys want to take a look, this is Cisco Corp. I like this. Kind of a consolidation pattern, if you will. It is a pullback. I like kind of a tight symmetrical pattern. So I'm hoping this will kind of emerge. My target on this is going to be a breakout at 81, but I'm going to play this as something a little bit less sloped. I'm cutting this off here, but I'm going to be targeting like 80, 81.50, 82. So it's going to be, I'm thinking of a calendar spread out of the money around 82 or 85 or 82.50, excuse me, depending on the strikes. Or I just might stick with my good old targeted butterfly. That's what I'm looking at on the bull side. So let's take a look at another one that I'm looking at on the bear side. And I think it slid a little bit too far. Adobe's been one that I've traded down a few times. I really like this recent move. It feels like it might just be a little bit overdone, but I like how it's bouncing pretty hard off of this bottom. I think that's kind of a good idea. And depending on how far this goes up or consolidates or break down, I'll probably catch on the next push to the downside. I know it could slide a lot further. I wanted to do a -2 kind of a trade on this, but I think I'm going to still just play it tight or closer up -1 with maybe some sort of a credit or a shorter term -1 targeted butterfly. But I need to see what this is going to do for the next few days, and that's kind of where everything is, especially with today's class, folks. Just sorry about it. We're just in a weird spot. All the bulls and bears that I'm looking at are more like, well, okay, let's see what happens in the markets the next couple of days. So it really just depends on where we're going to be in that first breakdown of the SPY. One last time here, guys. Just look for either a continuation march up higher or a break below that to really go from that +1 that we're at to a -1. But if it's anywhere between these lines here, it's just got to stay at that 0 to pullback area. But there are trades out there. Shorter term, +1 trades, -1 trades. That's kind of where I'll be leaning for at least the next week or so. Okay, so here's what I got. If you guys want to jot those down. Didn't really have much to really get into. DraftKings, remember, has earnings tonight. Dutch Brothers as well has earnings. Adobe's one that I'm actually waiting for more of confirmation of consolidation or rolling or breaking further down. In fact, I'd kind of want it to break further down is where I'd like to get into that Adobe. But thanks for the FRPT and the SA and the XHB, guys. I appreciate that. It's always nice to share. So check those out. All right, guys, if that's it, I'll cut you loose. Thanks for joining me, and we'll talk next time. Bye, everybody.